This is Kate Baconsale. You're listening to Baconsale.
Our names are Joel, Kent, Zack, and Steven. Listen to us at your own risk. We're a podcast. We work out of a bacon cave somewhere in Utah. As far as we know, we're the only Kate Beckinsale-obsessed, bacon-based podcast in the country. You can find us on your favorite podcasting app under Hickory Smoked Pop Culture. Believe it or not, no one wanted that tagline. You'd be surprised how many people don't agree with our opinions. This is Baconsale.
Yeah.
Wow. That's actually, we should start every episode like that.
Very specific.
Very descriptive.
Yeah.
Do you think
Zack.
we are like the biggest
Bacon-based,
Kate
Kate Beckinsale-obsessed podcast?
Yeah, you think so?
100%.
Have we looked into that?
Yeah, if we're not, we need to step it up.
True. Welcome to Excel. I'm Joel.
I'm Kent.
And I'm Zack.
We'd like to thank you for listening to our last show, our Muppet Show! Yay! We really do appreciate your feedback on that. We had a great time doing it.
Totally.
And Muppet Show is now on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
So if you have it, you can watch all 5 seasons and enjoy
Binging
it.
On Instagram, Darth Vernacular said, your opening was masterful.
Yes.
Yeah.
On Facebook, Christy Barber said, the episode art is tier 1.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of good stuff there.
They didn't say anything about the actual episode, though. It's like the intro and the art's good.
Yeah.
Everything in
episode
between.
was fine.
That hour 27 in there.
And Valerie Loveless Ilguth said, great show. The intro was so fun to hear. It instantly put a smile on my face.
Aw.
I want to add that Jim Henson's biography by Brian J. Jones is a great book to learn more about the Muppets. Also, Zach, I would totally watch Muppet Treasure Christmas.
Because you said that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But my favorite was definitely from Abe. I hope you guys saw this one.
Yeah, great.
So hey, fellas, thank you for this episode. My 8-year-old son is a huge Muppets fan, and he is doing a report on Jim Henson. He can tell you almost every detail of Jim Henson's life. We listened to it on the ride home from St. George, and he loved every second. He's giving an oral report on Jim Henson this week, and even got some more tidbits of info from all of you to share.
Perfect timing.
If he gets an A, he will. I'm giving you 3 all credit.
Yes. From the principal, too.
Yeah, right?
It's like I've said, Baconsale is a great road trip podcast. It's pleasing for everyone in the car. If you're going on a road trip, listen to Baconsale.
Joel, they're already
Make
listening.
the other passengers
they're
listen.
listening already, okay?
Listen!
Yeah, but all you need is one person to get the whole carload.
Wait,
true.
who's that?
Hey, we have a guest.
Hey! We have a guest here. Stephen Ross, welcome back.
Hey, thank you for having me back again.
The last time we had you on was episode 219, Celebrity Mix-Up Matchup, back in August of 2019.
Wow. Remember what life was like back then?
Aw.
Happy.
Does that mean you gained a this or that question since then?
Okay, Stephen, so we have to update. Since we asked you most of the questions last time, we're going to ask you one question
And I'm
this
pretty
time.
sure he agreed with me most of the time.
How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days or 10 Things I Hate About You?
10 Things I Hate About You.
I like him.
But no, last time you were on, you actually were very, very kind to come on the show because Jacob wasn't able to make it to that episode, and so you stepped in as Discount Jacob, as we called you.
Oh, yes.
And did a fantastic job, so thank you for that.
And it's more of an upgrade, I would say, at this point, because you're here and Jake is not.
Oh.
Is he? Is he?
It just seemed harsh.
But welcome back. But speaking of upgrades, don't we have an upgraded patron to mention?
We do. Christine Western.
Hi, Mom.
Zach's mom has upgraded to be a tier 1 patron.
Nice.
Thank you, Christine. We really do appreciate it. And your son's awesome. But Christine now has access to Behind the Bacon posts where we get to see like the song. You know,
Yeah,
that's
the
a tier
Muppet 2
1
takes.
Yeah, the Muppet 2 takes. We did that. You get some
Muppet 2 takes?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
You get some wallpaper that Kent designs, exclusive for patrons. You get some merch, and you get uncut episodes when they air. So it's a good time. If you're a tier 1 patron and Christine Western, we really do appreciate it.
Speaking of merch, I saw her the other day, and she had a Queenie's Grits phone case.
What?
Yes, it was
Wait,
so
we
good.
sold some Queenie's Grits merchandise?
Yeah.
That sounds great. I love those phone cases.
Oh, yes.
Anyway, but that's not what we're talking about today. What are we talking about today, Zach?
That is a good question. I don't really know what we're talking about
Give it a
today.
shot. What do you think
We
we're
are talking about the Dresden Files.
That's correct.
Yeah.
You got the
It's
name right.
It's a book series, yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a fantastic book series. I don't
Zach,
know why everybody does.
What's it about?
Yeah, so
Harry Potter?
Okay. Let's explain the format as we normally do these shows.
well, at least give our
wizard.
background to this. So, for example, Zach has never read the books, so doesn't really know anything about them.
Oh, no concept other than what I put together for the intro.
Which we intentionally kept him in the dark because we want him to be kind of the everyman of the show.
Yeah.
Kent.
Up until 2 weeks ago, I knew nothing about it other than the fact that there was a TV series, but had never seen it. And so I listened to the first book. And so that's where my knowledge is at the moment.
Did you know it was a book series too, or just a TV series?
Yeah, I knew it was a book series.
Okay. And then for me, I actually read 6 of the books, is what I've decided.
When?
Okay.
Back in the kind of the... I want to say late 2000s.
Okay. Yeah.
So that was around the time that a buddy of mine gave me the books and I read them. So, and then Stephen, let's talk to you for a second.
I actually discovered the book series a few years ago, but it was probably around the time you were reading, because I remember you mentioned Harry Dresden on one of the Baconsale episodes. I don't remember which one it was.
I did?
You did.
Wow.
I think it was in reference to magic using, because it's he uses a couple of particular spells quite often.
Yes.
So,
which we'll get into. But I was going to say, are you a big fan of books and reading and things like that? Is that kind of your thing?
well,
or?
My history is I have had a lot of books. Like, my mother loves to read to the family, and she did such a fantastic job. So she would start out reading a lot of books to us. And then as a teenager, I discovered Dragonlance novels. You know,
I remember those.
Very definite fantasy, in-depth dragons and the barbarian, the whole group meeting at the inn and to go out to do adventures and stuff. And so that was kind of my base as far as my teenage years. But as I got older...
Were you a popular teen?
What kind of question?
Whoa! Listen, I mean, Dragonlance. Sword of Shannara. That's what I was reading, and I wasn't very popular. So,
well, I got to say,
you're not now. Calm down.
In all honesty,
I got a podcast.
I think I could probably talk my friend Dave into listening to this. And yeah, I had several friends, a few close ones. The thing is, they weren't all friends together. It's not like I could have done a podcast with all my friends, because they didn't really like each other. They didn't know.
I get that. There's like a different, not the overlap over all of them.
Yeah.
Okay, so you had the foundation of this fantasy novel series.
So yes, the fantasy novel series, and then kind of dropped off a little bit reading.
I mean, after Book It, you don't really read anymore.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
I'm not
You
getting
get
pizza
credit
for this?
Exactly.
No.
There's no side benefit for me reading. I mean, actual enjoyment.
The Book It Club. You know what that is, Zack?
Wait, what?
The Pizza Hut.
Oh, you didn't get pizza.
Pizza Hut gives you, if
get
you
a
read so many
sticker
books, you get a sticker that you can go get
Yeah,
for
I
free
think
pizza.
they did something like that when I was in school, but it was like an apple or something.
An apple?
Yeah, that's not motivation.
Like an iPod?
No.
Gen Zer?
Like an actual
Millennial,
apple.
thank you.
But things took a turn when you go on a long road trip. And I was married, and I said to my wife, "Hey,"
I like how you were surprised by that.
when
I was married.
I was married, and I thought, "Hey, this is fantastic. I bet I could get my wife to read to me while I drive."
Oh.
Nice.
And she lasted a half a book, and she's like, "My throat's sore. I don't."
There's this thing called audiobooks where a paid reader will read to you.
But those aren't even done in one sitting, I'll have you know.
That's true.
Your voice
That's
gets
true.
really raw reading out loud.
And that's where it came from. Is that somebody gave us the audio? They had bootlegged some audio tapes for Harry Potter.
Oh,
Do
okay.
you guys still call them books on tape, even though they're like digital now?
Yeah.
No. Audiobooks. I've converted over, but only recently.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm the same as you, Zach.
Yeah, I actually was recently hired to do some video work, and every time the lady would text me like, "Okay, you're going to tape tonight," I'm like, "No, I'm not."
Well, and people, and this isn't me, because I believe that if you listen to an audiobook, it counts as reading.
Doesn't
People-
count.
People will say it doesn't count.
Because I
It's
always feel like it's 3/4 of being as smart as if you read the book. Because you're not quite there because you kind of cheated.
But how do you cheat? It's literally like having someone read a book to you.
It doesn't count
Because you're not
but it is
using
a different experience.
I feel like you read something differently than you hear something. It's the full, because I can drive in the car for a half hour and listen to something and my mind wanders. But same thing if I read too, because I'm skipping pages over. Okay, it's the same.
It's the same thing. If you listen to an audiobook, you've read the book.
Exactly. For example, I have an audiobook on it's the biography of Calvin Coolidge, right? Nobody reads that.
No.
But I listened to
Riveting.
it. And I think
Isn't
Calvin
that by Dan
Coolidge,
Brown?
But yeah, so I made the conversion to listening to audio, and I found that my brother Laren is correct when he said that I'm easily entertained.
Okay.
Because I've listened to Twilight a couple of different times.
You listened to the books multiple times?
Yes.
He's married?
I'm married, and my wife and I, for 10 years, would carpool together. We'd drive from Saratoga Springs all the way to downtown Salt Lake for those of, for the listener that's
a good
not here.
45 minutes.
Yeah, in traffic. And we used to have our babysitter in Woods Cross.
Which is north of Salt Lake. So
North
that's
of Salt
another
Lake.
20, 30 minutes.
And that adds the extra traffic on going both ways. So we had a lot of time in the car. And at that point, newly married, not a lot of money. So we had a few that we would listen to.
Your local
often.
library will check them out to you for free.
Yeah, we
Joel,
discovered
stop
that.
with the library thing.
Baconsale's brought to you by the library.
It should be.
Baconsale.
The couple that listens to Twilight together sparkles together. Okay.
It took you that long to come up with that?
Yeah, just barely. Joel knows my mind.
So, which again,
I like it.
Like I said, I'm easily entertained. So those were enjoyable. And so when a lady offered me a whole bunch of more CDs, you know, she
Just random ones,
Yeah,
like
she's
random
like,
books?
she had like 8 or 10 books. She's like, here, take these. And then of course, it all took off when I got a certain subscription service.
Audible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can say it. Not a sponsor.
Not a sponsor.
The
I mean,
library
it could
is.
be if we
The
asked them,
library
but
is, but yeah.
Yeah.
And that was 2012 is when we got it, and I've got over. I mean, both my wife and I use the same account, so it's over 200 titles now.
Yeah.
And so,
what led you specifically to a book called Stormfront?
Which is the first book of the Dresden Files.
Or was that the first book?
Yeah, Stormfront was the first book, and
it was the first book that you read.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I didn't read it, and the reason I didn't read it is because James Marsters, who plays Spike on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, reads it to me. And well, reads the wrong word. He acts, and like that's what I feel like. He puts a lot more emotion into it rather than just somebody straight.
Have you guys noticed, by the way, that some readers of stories are really good about making themselves sound like different characters, and others, you just laugh every time they try to do a different voice?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. It's
Save it for our book narrator show.
For our audiobook show. So how does James Masters do? Marston.
Marston.
James
Marston.
Marston.
Aragorn.
Yeah.
well, he started out. Like after a few books, because there are 17 of these plus a lot of side
17
jobs.
Dresden File books.
Yeah.
That's a lot of books.
Yeah, and he's done all of them. Well, he missed one, and John Gulliver, who plays
Lionel Luthor from Smallville.
yes, Lionel Luthor from
Wow.
Smallville.
Mm-hmm. I know. Random.
All of the
I'm
fans.
impressed.
They were both on Smallville too.
Oh,
which
yeah?
is interesting because he played Brainiac.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, but
Save it for our Smallville show.
That'd be a cool show,
I've never
actually.
seen it.
We'll talk about it later.
yeah, no, it's all right. But yeah, and then there was such a fan outcry. Not that John Glover did a bad job. It's just he wasn't
not the same.
Harry,
Right.
and so
Oh, he's the bad guy from Gremlins 2, isn't he?
Yes.
Clamp.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So and he didn't do a terrible job, but he enough of the fans were like, "That's not Harry Dresden.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bring him back." So he re-recorded.
That's a good gig, honestly.
So you've read all the novels
or listen to.
or listened to. It counts.
It counts. Same when it comes to audiobooks. Zach,
but let's-
same
I was
thing.
gonna
So
Same
I
thing.
I listened to the first like couple minutes just to get that intro from the beginning, and so I literally have 3 minutes context on this, and that's the guy who read all of them, right?
So, Zach,
Yeah.
once
So,
again,
Zach,
what's it about?
This is what we want to hear.
It's
Give us a synopsis of what
so
Dresden Files is about.
all literally first 3 minutes he has an interaction with like a postman, and he explains that he is like basically a wizard detective. It sounds
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Stop there.
Yeah.
I feel like that's good.
Right?
Yeah, because having read the one book, I would say he's a wizard detective or a wizard private eye, but it's a procedural where he works with a female cop or detective to solve supernatural crimes. And there's something darker happening in a bigger world, but magic exists in this world. That's kind of what I pictured the series to be.
So then I'll expand it further since we're going this progression
Yeah.
here, having read all the novels. So I was introduced to these by Jason Wilde, a friend from Quick Wits. Thanks, Jason. And he explained it to me as, what if Harry Potter grew up and was a lot more serious and had like a noir feel to it?
Like an horror.
But more like he's a real, not an horror, because he's not in the magical world. He's in the real world.
Nice try, Ken.
What is it?
And
Aurora?
What?
it's horror.
Words are hard for me. We all know.
The real juror. So then I started reading them, and this book is essentially a private detective story.
A noir story.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's,
yeah.
like, it's like a traditional kind of private detective story, but there's elements of magic to it. He's a real life wizard living in a world where people don't believe in magic things, and so like a lot of people are skeptical about him. But the weird thing is, having recently watched the Harry Potter movies, with my kids just recently, and this is that Harry Potter magic kind of fixes everything. Like you pull out your wand, you have a spell for everything, and it can do everything. The Dresden Files is much more grounded in that wizards have a limited amount of power, and frankly, he uses a lot of the same spells over and over and over again. Like there's this one, a Ventas servitas, where he'll be like, Ventas servitas, and it makes just wind blow, like big gusts of wind. He uses that often. Like that's his signature
So
spell.
he's limited in skill?
Everyone is. Like
Okay.
like magic is not as all powerful.
Okay.
And which makes it a lot easier because then you can't just wave your wand and everything's okay. It's like you got to figure out how to deal with stuff both mentally and magically and physically. And so that's why I liked it, because it wasn't, and I like the Harry Potter series too. Like, you know I do. I love it. But it wasn't as easy to get out of situations.
Okay.
And so, yeah, he's a private detective who puts his name in the paper as a wizard. And it's funny because...
Wizard for hire, sort of thing.
Yeah, basically
Okay.
a private detective, but has wizard powers.
Yeah.
But the funny thing about it is the book series, like I said, I've read about 6 books, but some elements have stuck with me. Like that I still remember and I still recall and I still reference in daily life.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So Stephen, build on that.
So,
is there more to the world?
Yes. Well, and I like that we're discussing the very beginnings, because the ad that he has in the paper is Harry Dresden Wizard, lost items found, paranormal investigations, consulting, advice, reasonable rates, no love potion, endless purses, parties, or other entertainment.
Yeah. So it's kind of this, he can be a clown at your party, or he can solve a paranormal
So
investigation.
for a certain fee, but a small fee,
So
he can do a lot for you, but just not the
he doesn't,
the genie
you know,
stuff.
Yeah, none of this. Hey, I just need an endless purse of money. So
Right.
Yeah. Picture Spider-Man in Spider-Man 2, where he's just struggling to get by because he has these powers, but they don't fix all his problems.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is funny because Jim Butcher writes a Spider-Man novel, which I have that one too. It's great. Anyway.
Oh, who's Jim Butcher? Before we get to who's Harry Dresden.
Jim Butcher is the author of this novel, and he describes Harry as an action wizard. You're right. The first book is very noir. He crosses Humphrey Bogart with a wizard.
And not like, don't picture like a wizard, like a gray beard, Dumbledore, Gandalf kind of guy. Picture more like Aragorn.
Yeah, I picture, because I've read the Dark Tower series. Here's some deep dive. We don't want to get too deep divey on this show.
Yeah, this is an introduction type
It's like
thing.
the gunslinger, but a detective.
Yes.
He's got like long flowing hair. He just looks super cool. Doesn't really fit.
Trench coat.
Doesn't really fit in the style of any time, but still have like a mystical look about him.
Yeah.
Yes, and it is. I would consider it a little bit more hard magic than Harry Potter. Soft magic. There's not really any explanation on how Harry Potter does his stuff, but Jim Butcher, for the first several novels, spends a lot of time talking about the
power of names.
Yeah, the power of names.
Or hair or blood.
Ingredients in the potion that match the 5 senses in the mind and something to draw them together.
And if they get one of those magic softeners, they can actually make their hard magic into soft magic.
It's really quite pleasant. It flows much nicer.
It does, yeah.
Avada Kedavra.
Now, the funny thing about Jim Butcher is that when he was a kid, he had strep throat, and his sisters actually read Lord of the Rings and the Han Solo adventures to him, and that kind of got him interested in fantasy.
Oh, the
and
Han Solo
sci-fi.
thing makes a ton of sense.
And so he had this fascination with science fiction and fantasy, and he wanted to write these really like deep fantasy books, like high fantasy, I think is what they call it, where it's just like, completely out there, magical world type stuff. And it wasn't working. He was at the age of 19. He wrote a novel, and he basically wrote 3 books, and they were all terrible. And then he rolled in a writing class in 1996, and his teacher kept trying to get him to kind of follow the formula, and he kept fighting against it.
Serialized novels, or
well, just kind of like the writing tips and tricks that people use in novels, like these
more
practical
tropey
things.
sort of
yeah,
stuff.
yes. And so he said, I finally got tired of arguing with her and decided just to write a novel as if I were some kind of formulaic genre writing drone, just to prove to her how awful it would be. And I wrote the first book of Dresden-Files.
Oh, wow.
Actually, he wrote the first 3 chapters, and he took them into the teacher, and he said she was very personable, and she was the type of person, if you didn't do a good job, she'd roll up the thing and hit you on the head. Do better.
Okay.
And she said, these are great. I want the rest of it. So he went home, and he pounded out an outline for all 20 novels.
So he had a plan.
Okay.
He writes out this plan for 20 novels, and his teacher, no, I just wanted you to finish the novel. And not to crush his spirit. Yeah, not to crush his spirit. She was like, okay, well, I don't know that you're going to get anything published when you go to a publisher and say, hey, I've got a plan for 20 novels. But he did indeed plan out 20 novels. And I think that's one of the other selling points, is because there are so many, it allows some detail to come out in each one of these books.
And what I was going to say is this kind of pulls a Game of Thrones trick, because he wanted to write high fantasy, but instead he wrote kind of this grounded noir private detective novel with some magic in it. And much like Game of Thrones, it started out as kind of this medieval drama, and then you get little bits of magic and craziness, and by the end you're fighting ice zombies in Game of Thrones. In Harry Dresden...
Spoilers.
I didn't say where, and I didn't say who killed.
I have no clue.
Yeah. But in Harry Dresden, it starts out kind of this private detective thing, but he keeps kind of putting a little more into each novel where all of a sudden, you're dealing with vampires and then werewolves. And all of a sudden you have like fairy courts and all these other things. And he starts kind of building up to the point where it's like, I think he honestly got his wish of writing high fantasy. He just had to kind of get people used to the waters.
Okay.
And I've only gotten 6 books in, so I don't know how far it goes, but I'm assuming he keeps bringing in more and more to world build.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so we're talking about this character. Who is this character? We talk about the Dresden Files by name. I don't think any of the books are actually called the Dresden Files, right?
No. None of them are called the Dresden Files, but he writes them as a case file.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
first person narrative.
Yeah. So the first book, he doesn't really describe himself. So his age it was kind of a mystery until you get a lot. So he's about 25 years old. All right.
That's pretty young.
And so Zack, if somebody was to come tell
I looked at Zack too.
Zack,
I could feel your eyes on me.
Hey, kid.
I have a story.
Hi, boy.
You're not a wizard yet.
About a guy who's a wizard, who's an orphan, who after a run-in with somebody who's very powerful and up to nefarious plots, is defeated.
Yeah.
He's taken under the wing by I don't know, let's say an older wizard, a mentor,
mentor,
right? And so it sounds a lot like a plot from another popular series, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
But the twist
Rhymes
here,
with Schmerry Schmotter.
Bless you.
but the twist here is, it's a more grown up thing.
Yeah.
It's and it's a little bit more grounded reality. And what makes Harry different is that
Different than Harry.
Harry Dresden versus Harry Potter.
It's the American style of casual. He's not really following the rules. He's not I guess I better just do this because people in authority told me to do it. So he's a little more reckless.
That Wild West mentality.
Yeah.
It does seem
Han Solo.
Yeah, exactly. He's the rogue.
In D&D he would be chaotic good because he's a good guy.
Now, I want to bring this up just because you kind of dovetailed into it nicely, but you talked about how these are more kind of adult novels. And I want to bring this up just so people don't go diving in midway through this episode with their kids and start reading these to them, because these are more grown-up tales.
That's something to do.
They're not explicit in that regard, but
Well,
Zack,
his descriptions are very
I
descriptive.
just took a drink and almost spit on the microphone.
his descriptions are very descriptive, but it never gets to like romance novel type levels.
It seems like he's unpopular with women, and he's very sure of that.
He's
right?
Oh, no wonder you like
25.
these books.
Oh, take it easy. I relate, okay? Joel, I feel like we need to hear like a parent's guide on this series. Because
so there are descriptions of relations and passions that are a little more adult in nature.
Okay.
Nothing, like I said, nothing romance novel level type stuff. Like it's not terrible, but it's there.
No Fabio.
No Fabio.
Okay.
Also, language wise, generally speaking, you're gonna encounter an F word or two in each novel.
Oh,
some significantly more. Like I think the most. I looked up.
Yeah.
Wait, you have numbers? You have stats?
I looked up.
Yes.
I looked up on Reddit. Thank you, Reddit. Someone went through and counted the number of F words per book and gave them an FTW ratio. The F words divided by 0.001% of the word count for that book. And so they went through and figured out which book had the most. And so in the first book, there are 2. And these are like, what would you say?
Exclamatory.
200 pages, 300, like 200 page novels. They're not long. They're not super long.
And audio version, none of them are over 16 hours. They usually find between 14 and 15 hours.
These are fairly quick reads, but at the same time, they're significant novels. This isn't like Goosebumps. Like there's thickness to these books.
Take it easy.
I mean, in length, in thickness of book.
They help form a childhood.
But the first one has like 2. The second one has 14 F words. The fifth one has 5. And so it's kind of they kind of go around there. They're usually single digit. But they
so
are
the first
there.
book is like PG-13, second book is rated R. If that's
just because mostly language and there is some violence too that happens in these novels. But these are crime dramas on like HBO or something like that. This is that kind of
even sometimes like CBS, like in some of those crime shows, they're really, really dark.
Yeah.
So I'd say this kind of matches that tone as
and
well.
I just want to set that tone for people because this is, like I said, these are very kind of, I don't want to say light and fluffy because they're not, but they're easy reads, but there is some adult content in there as well. Like this isn't like thick Silmarillion type fantasy.
This feels like cool dad paperback novel style.
Yeah.
That's what it seems like to me. Like a Louis L'Amour for those that are inclined towards magic.
Yeah.
I would say that that's
right. And having what, 17 books you said?
Yeah.
That's a ton.
The artwork, I will say, the artwork on each cover is a lot of fun. Like they're very well done. They like have different color schemes and different occurrences that are going on. And one of the things I love was going through and looking at the cover, and then at the point of the book, I realized, oh, that's that part in the book. It's on the cover. So I like going back and look at that. But covers are also good.
Okay, so without getting into many spoilers, back to Harry Dresden. Does he have a goal, or is it just to make money? Right? And like, does he have a greater purpose? Does he know he has a greater purpose or anything like that?
He has a certain way of viewing the world, and he considers himself a misogynist, which is funny because a lot of people get after Jim Butcher specifically because of how he writes his portrayal of
but it's
men and
character
women
based.
But he has this sense of chivalry, and you know, if I see a damsel in distress, which goes along with this noir thing, I will do the right thing. I will try to help her, regardless of what her motivations are, regardless of how much trouble he will get himself into.
But it's almost like a begrudging thing at times where he's like, dang it, I got to go help her.
Yeah.
And it's kind of this funny thing where he's the rogue. He's the rogue type character like Han Solo, where he's like, I got to do the right thing, even though I don't want to. It's kind of a fun attitude to have.
And he will usually get himself in over his head quite often. And as the stories progress, he progresses in power. But again, he's always getting in over his head. And he's always got to use his wiles to get himself out of situations that...
So each book is its own story, right? But they're somehow connected. They kind of build upon each other. Is there a different big bad in each book, or is there a grand big bad? Who is the nemesis to Harry Dresden?
Well, he has a lot of people that he goes up against. In the first book, he's fighting a dark wizard. In the second book, he ends up encountering not one or two, but 4 different kinds of werewolves.
Okay.
And it's another great thing is that the author puts so many of these bad guys in that.
And that's one thing that appealed to me, especially in that book, is that he creates this mythology where it's like, okay, there's lycanthropes and then there's loup-garous, and these are different types of werewolves, and here's the differences between them. It's almost like a J.R.R. Tolkien type thing where he's building kind of this world where it's like, these are the different types of werewolves, these are the different type of vampires, these are different type of fairies, and you kind of start believing it as you go along.
And so there are certain people that are in charge of these different organizations. Some of them are actually immortal, and he's got he's got to find a way of balancing all of these things and solving cases for his clients because he feels a duty to help them. At the same time, early in his life, he got in trouble with the ruling council of the White Council of Wizards. And so when we first meet him, he's under threat. Basically, he's already committed a crime, and they're going to execute him if he screws up again. Mm-hmm. So he has this foil in the Wizard Council, and specifically one of their law enforcement guys, a warden named Morgan. And so we have him. And of course, as the story progresses, yes, he's in several of these books, and he's a recurring character. And you've got the recurring characters in the Red Court. He sometimes will vanquish...
Which is vampires.
Yes, vampires.
Yeah, I was
Red
Court
Red Court vampires.
Zack,
Red Court.
Okay.
Sorry.
There's Red Court, there's White Court, there's Black Court, and each of these vampires have a different purpose in this world.
Okay.
Yeah. So, for example, like when I say Red Court vampires, these are your classic movie. They wear a skin and look normal, but underneath their skin.
He says wear skin.
Yeah, right. I'm kind of...
This is one of my favorite things about the vampires in this universe, is that they are wearing like a skin suit, and when they like vampire out, they like tear through the skin, and they're these horrible bat-like beasts.
Oh, okay.
And it's kind of cool.
That would be DC's Man-Bat.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Man-Bat, right? But then there's also the Black Court vampires that are very much, and he even references Bram Stoker in it and saying, they're the Bram Stoker vampires. And then my personal favorite, the White Court vampires. And I don't know if this was a jab at Stephanie Meyer, but they're the ones that are most human-like, and they don't have a a monster that is exposable, they feed off of human emotions. And they use lust and
Should have called him the
fear.
Sparkle Court.
And so, but they don't sparkle.
Yeah.
And he says they're more dangerous because they are the closest to
Yeah,
human.
they can blend in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
The interesting thing about it is that, like you said, Kent, there are big bads, but they come from both sides, because you have like the wizard court, which hates him,
Right.
and then you have the police chief that hates him. And so sometimes you'll get antagonistic behavior from the one side, or the magical side, or the real world side, and he doesn't have too many friends, to be honest. Like he works with Lieutenant Murphy,
Yeah.
and
Murph.
Murph, and she helps him out. She's a cop who just kind of she knows somewhat of his magic
and you have
abilities.
and throughout the novels, he gains more trust and is able to share more with her, because he doesn't want to get too many people involved. Again, he feels the desire to protect Chicago. That's his home city, and so
And he also has, I mean, think of it like Batman, because Batman has his
Sold.
his gallery of rogues.
Right.
Those crazy villains like Joker and Penguin.
And that's
all
what I'm
that.
wondering. Is there a Joker here?
But he also has kind of what is it, Marconi family?
Yeah.
the
mob
Mar-
bosses, yeah.
Marcone. So yeah,
Well, and in Harry Dresden, he has Marcone, the mob boss.
Okay.
And so once again, you have these kind of fantastical villains, and you have real world crime villains.
Okay, so you mentioned this is in Chicago, and there is magic that exists. Is this like a Men in Black thing where if someone on the street sees magic happen, they forget about it, or do they go, that was unexplained? I don't know.
there are certain justifications, but
By whom? Like the White Council? Do they tell people?
nobody gets directly involved. People watch him do wizard stuff, and they still don't buy it.
I think
Okay.
it's magic. I think it's hokey.
Yeah, early in one of the characters, one of the ladies works for a newspaper, the Midwestern Arcane. So it's a small newspaper, and they do reports on supernatural occurrences.
Okay.
And nobody takes it seriously except for the
It's like a
investigators.
blog, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
but
so-
it's also funny because his magic, it's not polished. Like he calls it kaboom magic. Like it's very kind of blunt force. I kind of know what I'm doing. I'm going to give it a shot. Like if someone were wearing a pair of handcuffs, for example, and he wanted to get the handcuffs off, he would use a spell and it would burst the handcuffs. Might also break their wrists.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not polished. It's kind of brute strength. He calls it thug magic.
Is there a reasoning as to why? Did you mention like why he's a wizard? Just born that
Yeah,
way?
origins. How far into origins do the books
Yes. So he qualifies as both a wizard and a sorcerer for those D&D
feels like-
handicapped people.
go? It feels like the same thing to me.
Yeah.
A wizard is somebody who studies to gain magic, and a sorcerer is somebody who inherits their magic.
Who's born with it? It's
So
part
he
of
does
it.
have a supernatural mother and a stage magician father who's just an illusionist.
Okay.
And so there are people that have differing levels of ability, practitioners, as he refers to them as. Some people are low level that he ends up working with, but usually the more powerful people come by it through not necessarily a bloodline, but
Yeah.
So Harry is born with some measure of
Magical
gift,
ability.
Yeah,
and then has learned more along
Yeah,
the way.
he
to
studies
do his own thing.
Yeah, he's
Cool.
And he does, like Steven said, he does progress and get more powerful as the books go on.
Yeah.
And-
He learns more and can do more.
Yeah, and there are other wizards that excel in other types of magic. Some are mind magic.
Is it like a mind control thing?
Oh, but that's illegal.
That's one of the seven
That's
broken rules.
dare you,
Zach.
Seven broken
We
rules.
told you not to bring that up.
But yes, there are people that can. You don't mess with time. You don't resurrect the dead. There are
seven
people
rules
that
of magic.
do.
Do you know the
From the
7
dead.
rules of magic?
Yeah, I have them here. It's,
Because I just want
He
to build
brought
this
notes.
world here. Yeah. Like if
Yeah.
you can name the 7 rules of magic that the magical world is not allowed to do, I
Ready?
think that will help people understand.
The 7 rules of magic.
and even if you don't
Number
know the
one.
rules of magic, if you break one, they will kill you because you broke the laws of magic.
It's not
So
like the.
But will they have to catch you doing it, or will they automatically know?
and they have ways of investigating,
Okay.
and that's one of the reasons Harry's in trouble is for using magic that he shouldn't have used.
So they have an internal affairs of wizards.
But is it like there's actual consequences, not like the unforgivable curses in Harry Potter, which are like, yeah, we shouldn't do those. But if you do, like, whatever. But
if
I'm pretty
you-
upset.
Stop bashing on Harry Potter. Well, I have them right here. I just pulled it up. So we have Thou Shalt Not Kill.
Good one.
Okay. Thou shalt
Seems
not
borrowed.
Thou shalt not
Slightly borrowed.
It's a basic rule.
Okay.
Thou shalt not transform others.
What about personal trainers?
That's okay.
Okay.
If you get shredded, you're cool.
Yeah, okay.
Thou shalt not invade the mind of another.
Joel, get out of my mind.
Thou shalt not enthrall each other.
What is that?
Another. Thou shalt not enthrall another. Don't make people fall in love.
Hey. Hey.
You're gonna question the enthrall in the mind thing, aren't you?
Yeah.
Enthralling them is binding their will. So maybe you're not necessarily getting into their brain, but you make deals with them.
Oh, okay.
They become...
Because if I have to stop wearing Axe body spray, right?
That's your magical ability.
To stop enthralling women, I mean...
You're a smolder.
And the smolder.
It enthralls me
I need to cut that
daily.
out.
Number 5, thou shalt not reach beyond the borders of life. We talked about that one,
makes sense.
not raising that. It's basically genie rules.
And bring people back from the dead.
Exactly.
Second time I made that joke. I'm sorry.
Thou shalt not swim against the currents of time. So don't mess with time, Hermione. And thou shalt not open the outer gates.
Cross the streams.
Is that
Now-
like afterlife or
So there is regular world, and then there's the magical Nevernever,
Like a
that you
parallel
can cross
world?
into.
Okay.
Yes, but there is also the outside gates, and that comes up way later in the
Without... Can you give an allusion to another story?
that's the shadowy place. We don't go there.
It's
Yes,
yeah,
the Pride Lands
not-
in the Shadowy
yeah,
Place.
It's outside of the universe. So there's, I guess I would say there's no
being and
multiverse.
creatures there.
Old gods?
Like the Titans and Hercules?
Or like
No,
Cthulhu?
Odin is in this reality.
Spoiler alert.
So, but that's the thing is they have to follow these rules. But it's also like some of the things they do.
Well, it seems like a basic wizard wouldn't do these anyways, right?
Well, he has to
Seasoned
skirt.
people don't.
Yeah, he's got to skirt the lines. In the first book, he has to figure out how somebody's killing people with magic, and he's like, I could research it and find out, but if I'm caught, figuring out how to do
checking out how to kill people with magic in the library. Once again, Baconsale brought to you by the library, your local library.
Yeah, if I get caught, I'm going to end up dead because they're going to come kill me for doing dark wizardy stuff.
Yeah.
And so
he's always, it seems like he's always kind of, he knows that he's walking that fine line and he's barely making rent at the same time. It just seems like life seems like an uphill battle for this guy.
Well, not even just making rent. One of my favorite things about the novel is the fact that when you're a magical being, when you have magic, your magic interferes with electronical devices. So like
he can't text people?
No, so here's the thing. If he uses it, it will just start to kind of malfunction. So he lives in this very basic apartment with like a wood burning stove. His gun he uses is a 6-shooter revolver, like very basic. The less mechanical moving parts, the easier it is not to mess up.
okay.
yeah, he says anything after World War II is subject to. I mean, he drives a Volkswagen Beetle because it's reliable.
They're very simple machines. Yeah.
And so reliable though, I don't know.
They're like Legos.
The upkeep on them.
Oh,
Yeah.
his is very reliable because he's got a good mechanic.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Joel brings up a good point.
Well, but-
he has a gun.
Right, but what I was going to say is that's one of the things I've always remembered from this book is that wizards mess with electronics.
They have like an EMP radiation sort of
because
thing.
I'm
Yes.
convinced my wife is a wizard because her phones that she gets will start to malfunction for no reason. They'll start glitching and being weird. And I'm like, what did you do? She's like, I didn't do anything. And I'm like, you must be a wizard. Like she said to me the other day, her phone was malfunctioning. And I said, what's wrong? She's like, I don't know. I'm a wizard.
Because of what you said so
I've
much.
said it to her so many times. So yeah, that's one of the things that I really stuck with me. And I like that kind of that limitation it puts
Yeah.
on him because he can't just go up to, he can use computers, but it's like, I'll see if it works or not. 'Cause
Yeah.
he doesn't
Okay,
know.
so
'Cause
once again,
in the second book, he's traveling through a hospital, and he's like, I got to go the back ways. I don't want to pass by somebody in the ICU and shut down their...
okay.
Yeah.
And so he, again, the grounding in a little bit more reality.
He'll take the stairs instead of elevators.
Yeah, it's a limitation that makes it more interesting.
So he has a gun. Does he have a wand? Like, how does he fight the bad guys?
He doesn't have a wand per se. He has a staff, which he uses to focus his magic. He can do magic without it, but it protects his mind, and he is able to do more delicate operations if he has these magical focuses. So he does have a staff. He has what he calls a blasting rod, which would basically be a wand, but he doesn't use it to do anything other than fight the bad guys.
It's like a billy club almost.
yeah.
Okay.
So he uses
But he's not like a fighter. It sounds, from the first book, the impression I got is he just likes to solve crimes, help people out. I don't know why he's so tied to our world. And his dad was human, I guess. But I didn't really catch why maybe that was important to his origin story. Or like, why can't he just be a wizard doing cool stuff? Other than the fact that he may be killed by others, right?
And he does get called on it a couple of times. Even from other wizards. Why are you getting so involved? And that's one of the things the council doesn't like, is that he runs an ad in the newspaper.
Right. So is there a reason for him to do so that's not spoilery? Like, to help us out? Does he find this more interesting?
It's his obligation. It's his character trait of, I'm going to do good. I feel responsible because of the abilities I have. So,
but he
I don't
likes
want
to get the reward at the end. He's kind of like the in the westerns. He's the cowboy that wants the bounty at the end.
Yeah,
because he still needs to get by.
Ultimately, he does.
Although sometimes he does forego payment to be the bigger man or something
of those
like
westerns.
That.
Yeah,
right.
And I wouldn't go as far as to say it's with great power comes great responsibility type of thing, but he does feel...
It seems like a medium power or medium responsibility.
Exactly. Exactly. Again, he's a good guy, and he wants things done right. And so when he sees people using the magic of the magic of creation, it makes him mad that people use it to destroy things.
Okay.
So,
by the way, I want to clarify. I did misspeak. I misspoke before. Sure. That the page counts, I'm looking at this, and I said about 200 pages. The first one's about 287, but they get up into like 300, 400, 500. And the last novel was actually 600 pages. A couple more things I just want to bring up real quick. You mentioned up side stuff. I want to talk about side characters.
Okay.
A couple of my favorite things about it. Bob, first of all.
Bob the Skull.
Bob is a skull. It's in his apartment. That's basically kind of like, the butler, like Alfred in Batman. Yeah. It's like kind of like that, but he's a skull. He's this haunted skull that kind of communicates with him, and he helps him and talks things through with him. And the skull, Bob, it's a spirit trapped in there, and the spirit can wander around a little bit, but he has to be back in the skull before daylight hits, otherwise he's gone. But he'll actually inhabit the cat. What's the cat's name?
Mister.
That's right.
His 30-pound gray cat.
It's a big cat. Like 30-pound cat. I don't know if you know how big that is, but it's a big huge cat. But he talks about Mister all the time. And I don't know, for some reason that's endearing to me that he has this big dumb cat that he hangs out with. He doesn't seem like a cat guy to me. But Bob and Mister, like, it's one of those things where I'm like, I really like whenever there's scenes with those two, because Bob has kind of a sense of humor about him.
Yes.
And he's kind of, I don't want to say comic relief, because it's not exactly, joke punchline. But he does bring some levity to the books, which I enjoy. And Mister's just a big dumb cat, which is great.
And they're in every book?
Yeah, Bob is pretty much his lab assistant. So anytime he needs to do, because he can't have a laptop that we're all looking at right now, he has this lab assistant that remembers, because he's a spirit of intellect. He remembers things that he's given, and so because he's been through so many wizards, it's helped him with their research if he needs.
It's like, kind of like when is this a spoiler alert for Supernatural? When Sam and Dean find a place where they can hang out and actually do some research, and they have books and libraries and things like that, and they can look up. It's kind of like that, where he'll go in his back room and he'll draw a circle and do some incantations and bring up a spirit and talk some spells into him. Like, they can bind spirits like in Supernatural, like put that, kind of
like a salt circle and whatnot. Yeah,
kind of like that. If you like Supernatural, you're probably going to like the Dresden Files. I'm just saying.
That's probably all you needed to say. We should have started with that.
Yeah.
Dang it, here we are.
Okay.
I like that they do these little jokey type things where, for example, I talked about the cover art earlier. Almost every single cover art has Harry Dresden wearing this big, broad-rimmed hat.
Right.
But he doesn't wear a hat in the books. In fact, it's kind of this running gag where, like, in a couple novels down the road, he actually says someone tries to give him a helmet, and he's like, no, I don't do hats. Like, it's this running gag where he doesn't wear hats in the novel, but on the cover, he's wearing a
just
cool
to make
hat.
it look more epic?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I respect it.
Kind of like Steven on the cover art. We're going to make him wear
Precisely.
a cool hat.
You're going to be wearing a hat.
Okay, I'm in.
Okay, so we've talked all about the world, who Harry Dresden is, who some of the villains are. Let's start recommending this if we can. Like, who would you recommend this for?
I think because it's an urban fantasy, I think it does cross boundaries. People that like the fantasy aspect, I think there is definitely not necessarily just a hint or a little sprinkling. I mean, there's a couple of series that have a little bit of supernatural stuff, but I think there's enough magic involved in here that, I mean, there's a knight and a dragon. How do you put that into an urban fantasy?
Okay.
But he does.
And he manages to make it.
And I haven't read this novel, but there's literally a meme you sent us where it talks about Harry Potter says, hey, I defeated a Dark Lord when I was a child or something like that. And then he says, I actually defeated a Dark Lord riding on top of a reanimated Tyrannosaurus Rex, which that's in the books.
I'm in. Yeah.
And I think that's funny that they can get to that point where there are dragons and Knights Templar that show up, and it's all kind of...
Knights of the Cross.
Knights of the Cross.
That's the
right.
other thing, that not only is he putting in this fantasy stuff, he also has a very good treatment on religious people. One of his good friends, I would say the conscience best friend, has a big family. He's a religious Catholic. He goes out and helps him fight these supernatural bad guys with a sword, and there's 3 of them that have a nail worked into the cross, or a nail from the cross worked into the hilt of these
blessed and holy.
Okay.
What's the word
so
for
they're
it?
using holy relics to
Relics.
fight.
That's it.
Okay.
And it's very even treatment. It's not necessarily. I don't think it comes off as cheesy or really preachy.
Well, it sounds almost like the way Indiana Jones treats religious artifacts.
Yes.
I would say similar to that.
Okay.
Yes.
Where it's like they exist, they're real, they have power.
I'm into that.
And then, of course, he fights the bad guys. That there's 30 of these guys with silver coins, and each one of them has a fallen angel connected to him.
Okay.
Yeah. It really is like, I mean, if you picture, and once again, I'm going to draw an analogy here. We talked about references to Supernatural and to
Harry Potter.
Harry
Yeah,
Potter.
sure.
Yeah.
But also Mandalorian. It's a thing where he's trying to get a job done. And then inevitably he'll be set on a side quest where it's like,
right.
I just want to do this thing. Okay, before you do that, though, you got to help me do this. And he's like,
Yeah.
But that's the thing. The whole point of the story is he just wants to get the job. He just wants to get paid. But he ends up having to protect the world. Like, it's not just about finding out, this lost item. All of a sudden it becomes, this lost item is tied to this, which is tied to this, which could end the world. So I've got to stop it.
Right.
Yeah, it feels like really like a Western. You made the comparison, but that's intriguing, and it's a good structure for all the stories to take place, it sounds.
Yeah, and so I feel like that if that the idea of a fantasy is appealing, he's still that hard bitten detective that he gets beat up because he's messing with the wrong people.
Okay, so this sounds like if you were a semi-experienced reader with some of those books behind you, or pop culture TV shows or movies behind you, then it would be okay to approach this series. Because I think the downside here is that this is a novelization. These are novels.
Yeah.
And there is no real, maybe canonical show or movie.
Should we jump into that?
We can, but I mean, real quick,
Well, my
it is
question
harder
is
for
on
people
on
to
the
jump
books.
into books.
Yeah. Well,
Right?
I'm looking at it. There are how many books?
17.
17. And this is over a 20-story arc, potentially, maybe.
He started writing them in 2000, and his last 2 just came out in 2020.
So there's
25 actually is what his plan.
25.
Is now. Yeah.
So there's a
Yikes.
lot to
Overwhelming.
come. So is it one single through line of story? If I want to jump in, do I have to just Google what's the order?
The first few novels, he does a lot of re-explaining. For those experienced readers, when he describes how he's operating, when he describes he calls his car the Blue Beetle, and he describes it in I think the first 4 books.
Yeah.
He describes how he makes potions in the first several books. But as you get along, so I would say if you're going to start out at the beginning, a lot of people say that his books do increasingly get better, with the exception of the second one. There's a lot of people that say the second one is the worst.
Okay.
one.
Oh, really?
Good to know.
The second book,
Yeah,
which
the
is
second
Full
book,
Moon with the werewolves?
Full Moon with the werewolves, which,
Huh.
again,
It's New Moon.
Nah, no, it's not. What do you think this is? The White Court of Vampires?
and that's not full moon as in Full, it's FOOL. Full
That's right.
moon.
Oh, shoot.
Like Artemis
Right.
Fool.
So, yeah, I just
Get it?
By the way, I just want to run through quickly. I'm going to run through these titles just so you get an idea of
All of them. Okay.
Well, just sure. Stormfront, Full Moon, Grave Peril, Grave Peril,
Get it?
Ghost stories.
Summer Night, Knight, Death Masks, Blood Rites, Dead Beat, Proven Guilty, White Knight, Small Favor, Turncoat, Changes, Ghost Story, Cold Days, Skin Game, Peace Talks, and Battlegrounds.
Skin Game's my favorite for sure.
Family friendly.
What you talked about in the earlier novels, there's maybe some stuff that it's explains, but once you get the hang of it, I mean, so I'm thinking about, maybe two different versions, right? You've got, not to make another comparison, but your Harry Potter, right? There's clearly year 1, year 2, year 3, but then you have I really like the James Bond novels, and yeah, they all may have come out in a certain order, and yeah, they take place at some point in his life, but really they're all kind of self-contained missions. And if you have a certain amount of knowledge and you can read any James Bond book in any order you want, is it like that? Or would you recommend an order?
I would recommend an order because he gets in over his head. There are certain consequences to actions that
follow him.
That follow him around.
Okay.
Well, but also, I think you could.
Stuff.
I think you could jump into any book and get the concept of the book, but then when a character walks in, oh, there's Toot-Toot, the actual name of the character.
What?
There's a fairy named Toot-Toot. But then she shows up and you're like, oh, it's her again. And if you've read the novels, you know the backstory. Yeah, him. Sorry. Yes. Sorry.
Oh, Joel, how could you get that wrong?
I was looking at Susan Rodriguez at the time when I said
Disservice to Toot-Toot.
But no,
listen, Toot-Toot's awesome, and Kent, you'll like Toot-Toot. He is.
I like Toot-Toot. Okay,
but I mean, and Supernatural does this too, where someone will show up and it'll be like, dun dun dun, they've returned.
Oh, from season 2,
and I'll be like, I don't know who this person is.
Okay,
and it doesn't have the same impact. So I think you could jump into any of the novels that interest you, but it will have more
impact. It's just going to be a better experience
if you get the running start into it.
So you just have to Google the order. And
so you're asking people to honestly invest, or just are you saying, because here's the thing, you're recommending the series to people, and if they read Storefront, which I did, and yes, I am interested to read more or listen to more, same thing, but some people
want to meet those seductive fairies.
I want to get to Skin Game. And then I'm good.
Stop. Family friendly.
But I'm being family friendly. It's just the title of a book. But people may stop reading after Stormfront or halfway through because it is a slow burn. It's a slow detective story up until there's a lot of crazy stuff happening, right? And that may be the only thing they ever read. Are you proud enough of that first book to really recommend that first? Or is book 5 the best? Or something like that? Or do you think just it makes sense to start from the beginning and just know you're going to have to read 3 or 4 books to get there?
I would say that yes, there's an investment. I'm asking everybody within the sound of Baconsale podcast.
So the listener.
The listener.
And me.
Take my advice. And Zach, start reading them. Reading them, and you won't turn. I have a couple of guys at work. I've been talking about this. I've been preparing because this is the highlight of the year right now is doing Baconsale.
Yeah.
It's early in the year. You'll
surpass this.
Yeah, it's fine.
But I recommended it, so I told everybody I'm doing this, and this is the episode they're all going to listen to. So I'm going to,
they're going to talk about Toot-Toot.
Yes,
I love Toot-Toot. Major Pain.
Good reference.
Oh no! Wow, a Major Pain reference.
But James specifically and Brent started these novels. They download. I talked them into downloading the novels.
Friends of yours.
Yeah. James made it through the first 3 books in the first week, and then Brent is on book 6 now within the last couple of weeks. Another gal, Christy, she's already up to the 12th one, I think.
Are you saying people have extra time to consume things?
Well, and I would say people that are like, because I get it all the time. Oh, books put me to sleep because I work overnights. But I'm like, look, if you're mowing your lawn, you're doing your dishes, you're driving somewhere, those activities will not necessarily allow you to get as distracted as easily. I mean, if you read a book, you have to sit down and read the book. If you sit down to listen to an audio something.
Right. Folding laundry and whatnot, it's a good thing for that. As long as you've already listened to Baconsale for the week.
Also, the first book, maybe first couple are free on YouTube.
Oh, free on YouTube? Mm-hmm. Oh,
yeah.
Sounds right.
Joel likes free. That just perked him up right there.
I've already read the first couple books.
But books are hard, right?
But good words in general.
A good friend of mine said words are hard.
But Stephen, why would I read the books when there is a television series of the Dresden Files?
Okay, so...
Ding, ding, I meant to say.
Yeah.
So, there's a TV series, as Joel so perfectly said. Why not just watch that?
Because when they started the TV show, they didn't talk to the author. They didn't. He was not talked to about doing the show.
Sounds like Hollywood. Sure.
Yeah, they got the rights to it. They offered the part to James Marsters, because of his involvement with the audiobooks. And they were filming in Canada, and he said, I'm not moving my kids to Canada. Just film it in Los Angeles.
Yeah, he hates America's Hat.
And so
Everybody loves America's Hat.
Not James Marsters.
Save it for our America's Hat show.
We will have that show.
But, and to his benefit, he did it for his kids. I'm sure it would have gained a little bit more popularity, but because there was no involvement of the people that we connect to the story. And then, of course, I don't want to say Hollywood always gets it wrong, but I feel like, Karen Murphy, his side cop, his sidekick cop friend, you can't cast a blonde. Little things like that, but I think the deal breaker was
But you
Bob
can't
the
cast a
Skull.
blonde. You got to clarify that. You can't cast a blonde because...
You just can't cast a blonde.
You can't cast a blonde.
Can't cast a blonde. Gotta cast a blonde.
And I'm not saying we have to be specific in every description of every character
But
ever.
she didn't fit the type that you pictured in your mind.
But yes, she didn't. We've associated this blonde cop as the opposite of this tall, lanky, powerful, I can use magic with his cop who's like, I'm in law enforcement. I can't do these things.
Well,
but she's still capable.
And let's be real. This was a sci-fi TV series, right?
This was a sci-fi original which ran from January 21st, 2007 to April 15th, 2007.
Oh, we're talking a half season order then.
It was one season, 12 episodes, and it got canceled and I think it's because they didn't do it right.
Who played Harry Dresden in this?
Paul Blackthorne, which you don't know him.
Oh, he's the dad
plays
in
Detective
Arrow.
Lance in Arrow.
Yeah, Detective Lance in Arrow. You've seen him a couple times, but he's kind of...
And he didn't do a terrible job.
No, he was fine, Harry Dresden.
I would have been able to handle that, but they cast Bob the Skull. He's a skull. He's lights. He's described as lights. They got a British butler guy.
Yeah.
And I was like...
So I actually watched the first episode, and it was exactly what I expected. Because now when I will watch these movies, even if I'm not too familiar with the book series, I know there will be disappointment. Because generally they don't consult the authors or just disregard their material. And that's precisely what they did here.
Did they just work off of a basic elevator pitch?
Yeah,
It's
they
like,
said...
Chicago Wizard Detective, go.
Totally. And then there's going to be a kid
that was my
that
band's name in
comes...
college.
Chicago Wizard Detective.
Chicago Wizard Detective, go.
But it's weird because they get some kid to come say, there's monsters chasing me. And they make this as every typical story, and it has nothing to do with the dark world of Harry Dresden.
Yeah,
it's a police procedural as well.
Yeah, and it's not that detective noir that it should have been.
But I want to say, it's not that it's bad,
It feels bad, like cheap.
but it's just kind of vanilla. It's
Okay.
just like, this kind of story you've come
Canadian.
to expect.
It feels very Canadian.
Stop with the...
It's like
I
Zack is Canadian.
I remember I watched it. I don't even know if I finished the series, but I watched a few episodes and I just was kind of like, yeah, take it or leave it. It's not the Dresden Files, because I watched it after I read the books and was like, oh, let me see the TV show. Wasn't that impressed?
No.
So I'd recommend not watching it, not because it's bad, but just because it's not worth
and
your
obviously
time.
it doesn't go anywhere because it's like 12 episodes, right?
It's like watching The Dark Tower and saying, this is not
The movie
book
The Dark
series.
Tower, yeah.
And they did the same thing in the Dark Tower where it's like from the kid's point of view and then it kind
Yeah,
of...
you're like, that's not...
Okay. So would you like to see this series adapted at all, even given that some like young adult fiction adaptations have been so poorly ruined, right?
Yeah.
Would you like to see this, a movie, a TV series? How would you like to see it done?
I feel like this would make a great movie franchise. I think it really would. Each book is basically Harry Dresden's worst weekend. And, it scales up. So you're not seeing them fight the same.
It feels like, though, there's so much in each novel that it would have to be like a Netflix series. You know what I mean? Like an ongoing... Because could you really fit a lot of what happens in those novels in a 2-hour movie?
And I guess that's true. I guess more of a series based, because you're right. There's a lot of depth to character. If you were to see Johnny Marcone, the mob boss, straight out of straight off the big screen, you wouldn't have the depth, because I think it's in book 5 we find out a lot more about his motivations and why he became the top mob boss.
But we don't need to know that before then. He's like a one-dimensional character.
Yeah.
Until
Okay. You get a little more sympathy for him a little bit.
Okay. So yeah, I think a TV series would be the best way to do that.
And
A streaming series.
And I would
Yes,
say that
with a
that
budget.
especially since you talked about Joker, you want that rogues gallery. He is, I would say, probably the most threatening villain he faces because
Marcone.
A regular human mob boss.
Yes, because he's aware of what goes on, and from his very first interaction with Harry, he starts developing plans on how to counter this guy who can be a thorn in his side.
And he plays the Mamba, and that's unusual.
Marconi plays the Mamba.
Yeah, and it's how do you play the Mamba?
But then
doesn't
also
exist.
you have on the other side, Harry Dresden has that kind of Batman rule, but it's a little more serious because he can't kill using magic.
Okay.
Otherwise, he's in big trouble by the Wizard Court, and so he can't kill this guy, even though he has a couple opportunities when he can, but he's just not able to.
Okay.
So I actually, now tell me if I'm off base here, but based on what I've heard, I actually think this would make an awesome open world video game.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So
You just really excited, Steven. Toot-toot. That's what we say when we're excited on this
I
show.
was thinking about. I think about the Batman Arkham franchise, where you've got those rogues galleries. You've got these different stories.
You totally could.
I think it sounds like it would be a really cool video game.
Jim Butcher actually, I think, developed a role-playing game based
Like
on
a card game.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, like a tabletop game.
Yeah,
That's what I mean.
tabletop game. Save it for the other tabletop games. Calm down.
It's going to be so many of those.
Hipster tabletop games.
But yeah, I mean, it just it seems like it'd be a cool way to go about that. Maybe tell some stories, a la the Witcher or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, and then there's definitely enough material that you could make a really good.
Okay.
So you just need a passionate producer and director to get behind it, and a recognizable enough star here, because I don't think most of our audience knows who this character is or cares, right? And so they need it to be promoted by a certain star or director. I feel.
But would you want that with someone that already something like
Well, I mean,
Tom Hanks in the role, and he's already
look
got
at Henry
all the
Cavill
baggage
in The
behind
Witcher,
him.
right? Like, it's a strange show, really hard to follow, but you have Henry Cavill in the lead role, and it gets people to watch
True,
that normally wouldn't.
that's true. But I mean, then you look at something like Stranger Things, and it's like
Yeah, no names, right?
no names in there. Winona Ryder was the biggest name going on that first season, and yet it became a big hit because of the story it told.
That's very true.
It became a big hit because they spent a lot of money on marketing.
They did, and Netflix does that. That's why my prices keep going up.
Yeah.
But I do wonder, like, if you had a choice, Stephen, who would you cast in the role of Harry Dresden? Like, if you're a casting director, picking from Hollywood actors,
Anybody.
Except Tom Holland.
Oh, I wouldn't do Tom Holland.
Thank you. I'm sick of him. Thank you.
I don't know. That's a really good question. In my mind, I don't know if I personally would like to see somebody, a new face in there.
Oh man,
Something that would.
it's my same answer for James Bond.
That's why you're not going to make it in Hollywood, man.
But
Yeah.
it's not marketable.
And I realize that's again, we live in a world of remakes and reboots, and I like the idea of a new story. Do we really need the Lord of the Rings again as a TV series? I'm like, wait, what was wrong with the previous Lord of the Rings that we need to change?
Money.
Right. And again, it's a recognizable one, but
All I request for who if they were to cast Harry Dresden, all I request is that they have someone who can grow manly scruff. I just picture him with like Paul Blackthorne. He has manly scruff.
I pictured Guy Pearce 20 years ago.
Okay, I can see that.
Joel Hilton. Joel.
That's Christopher Lambert.
Yeah,
20 years ago.
Pierce. What?
Yeah, Joel's Guy Pearce.
It
How
feels
does that
like
happen?
It feels like maybe what about like a Nathan Fillion back in the day?
Not as
He's got to be a little more rough, less jokey.
Little
Yeah.
okay, little
Yeah.
little
Well,
bit edge.
Sarcastic
to
as well.
be fair, somebody asked him if he was always a smart aleck.
Yeah, there
And
you
he's
go.
like, well, no, sometimes I'm asleep. So there is that
Okay.
element of fun. I mean, he does have a certain disrespect for authority.
Okay,
And
what
so-
about Stephen Amell? He played Arrow.
not a good enough actor.
No, sadly.
The guys wouldn't like he looks the part, but man, I could not take him that long on Arrow.
I like how we're fan casting at the end of this show. Okay. I feel like we've come to a natural conclusion on this.
Yes.
Except I really want you to you promised yourself you wouldn't do this, but I want you to come to the microphone and share your feelings. Maybe your top couple reasons that you need to recommend this to people, why you've come on this show, and you need people to get into this book series, which will be harder, and what they should learn from you.
because book series
specifically.
are a time investment.
Yeah.
We can tell people to watch a movie in 2 hours of their life. That's
Easy.
all it takes.
Yeah.
But these books, you're reading them, like you said, these are like 16-hour experiences if you're doing them on audiobook.
Yeah. Well, I would say
Double speed, 8 hours.
Sure.
double speed, but man,
Don't do
James,
double speed.
James does
Don't do
such a
double
good
speed.
job as once in a while, did last couple double
Okay,
speed.
so number one, if you listen to him, James Marsters does the audiobooks.
Yeah,
and he does a great job.
And I would
right?
say, that would be my pitch for listening to them on audio, is that James does such a good job of actually acting out these characters and bringing them to life. The characters themselves, I think, are interesting and dynamic. There are great foils for how this guy who has a lot of ability and a lot of basically temptation to take the wrong path, and how he struggles with that to do the right thing, which I feel like in our lives, a lot of us, I mean, it's really easy to go ahead and fire back snarky comments on a social media post. But is that really the right thing to do?
I don't know. Online comments change the world.
Exactly. So he's got a lot of destructive potential, and I feel like the series really deals with how he gets himself in over his head, protecting people out of the goodness of his heart.
Okay, so good characterization.
Oh yeah,
perfect.
And I like the villains. The ones that are more closer to mortal villains are the interesting ones. Basically, if you're going to invest time in a TV series, I mean, we've all seen The Office, we've all seen Friends. You know, the new offerings.
Which is basically the same story as Dresden Files. Friends is.
Oh,
basically.
exactly.
If you like Friends, you'll like the Dresden
The one where
Files.
the giant toad tried to eat me.
Yeah. So
happens.
the time investment is totally worth it. And I feel like it's something that is easy to fit into your routine if you make an effort, especially if you have a long commute or something like that. And I really feel like...
Or if you just like to curl up with a good book.
Yeah. Or like my wife and I, we play video games and listen to stuff. So a podcast.
Really? You listen to stuff as you play video games?
Oh, yeah.
Huh.
Oh, yeah. So like Breath of the Wild, where it's a basically one-player game, we fire up a podcast. You know, you got to start with Baconsale. That's the first one.
All right, you're here now. You don't have
Sold.
To... yeah.
You know, and if you are starting with the first episode of Baconsale, that's a time investment. I definitely think that this makes a good dovetail because there's enough content in these novels to really appeal to a wide variety of interests.
So if people give this a chance, and there are 3 books in, even though book 2 isn't very good, you think they will become fans? You liked it okay?
I liked it okay. It has werewolves in it. I like werewolves.
Yeah. So you think they'll become fans? Like, if they give it the time and patience for a couple novels, you think it'll win them over?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And I will add that if you don't mind a little sauciness, because they do get a little saucy, that this is a fun, kind of grounded fantasy tale. That it's unique from other ones. It really kind of does stand out. And there's little things like for example, there's this power where you can open your third eye, and it's like you can see, what do they call it, wizard sight or something like that.
Yeah, wizard sight.
And it's this way of seeing the world and not the way we see it. But the problem is everything you see in wizard sight is permanently like burned into your brain. You see it always.
I like that.
And it's a cool concept.
So the book I just went through, at the very end, there was this demon, and it has a appearance in our world, but he said, I don't want to open my third eye because I won't be able to unsee what it truly is.
Yeah.
And that, to me, I love horror novels. I'll read Stephen King all day, right? And this is thrilling enough without being too scary, but it has enough of the supernatural element to keep me interested.
Well, and even like there's the other thing where like he can send out like his senses, and he can do them a certain length, and then if he pushes farther, he can push them out farther and like sense if someone's in a house or something like that.
Cool.
I've done that.
You've done that?
After reading the novels, I'll get like, if I'm like, wait, I'll like sit there, like kind of just close my eyes and just listen, and then I'll try to listen farther. And like just these little things that I picked up from the novel because it was something creative and new that I hadn't thought about before, but because I read the novels, now they're part of my psyche.
Well, and another thing is that he talks about how people think wizards are know things. He's like, I just focus on hearing things.
Yeah.
It's not
So it's very
something
observant.
supernatural.
Yeah.
He uses his regular senses as well.
Yeah.
But it's a unique character. It's a unique story, and it's one that I think that a lot of people, maybe even the listener, would enjoy.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's my addition to that as well.
Love it.
Zach, where are we tipping you on this? Being everyone who's never read it, how lost do you feel right now?
Honestly, not terribly lost, I think, because of the different tie-ins. But I gotta be honest with you, this actually sounds right up my alley.
Yeah?
Yeah, it sounds really cool. I actually think I'm definitely going to check out at least the first book. I'm sold.
You going to finish the My Little Pony series first, or are you just going to go right into this?
Joel, it's too important. I got to get through that.
For the third time, friendship is magic.
It is. Yeah, I think it sounds really interesting. And again, you tell me that it's, there's these sort of references or Han Solo-y things or Western style. I mean, I like it all. That sounds good.
Yeah.
So it also sounds like right up the Baconsale alley for like a sneaky October show.
Which it kind of is. It's not straightforward like scary. Like, it's not a horror novel, but it's just there's scary elements that happen in it.
It's like our cryptid bracket plus, detective.
Well, and the cryptid bracket would fit so well in this universe. I mean, it's got so many, like, he fights the 3 Billy Goats gruff. I mean,
and you just lost people.
But he makes it cool.
Yeah.
He that all of the things he ends up doing is just everything's tied in so well.
Yeah.
That it's such an open expanse that he got 10 books in or something like that and said, "Oh, I haven't added Bigfoot yet." Right? So there's a whole bunch of short stories about Bigfoot.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, and I was going to say, just thank you. I was going to say, Stephen, for bringing this to the attention, because if nothing else, you've at least exposed one listener to the world of Harry Dresden and the Dresden Files.
Well, even on this show, we feel like we're pretty savvy on anything, or at least we've done the research.
We try, yeah.
And Joel, you knew a lot about this series, but this is a blind spot for me, and now it won't be anymore.
Yeah.
Well, and I like the idea of using Baconsale's audience. We do
all the time. We use the listener.
Yeah,
we use the listener to expose them to, because we do lots of movies and TV shows and pop culture stuff, and I feel like it's time for us to dip our toe into some novels and
little book club, if you will.
Oh yeah, Baconsale book club.
Hey, do not. People get real excited if you say stuff like that.
Yeah, I need to read more. But thank you, Stephen. Thank you for coming on here.
Yeah,
Is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to here at the end of the episode?
Yeah, I told everybody at work that this was the episode they're going to listen to because I'm on it. So I, give a what's up to everybody at work.
We call that Toot-Toot to everybody.
Toot-Toot to everybody.
I'm not going to let that die, guys.
Oh, no.
Let it.
Everybody at work. And I try to talk to my kids into Baconsale. They'll occasionally listen to it. They're my wonderful wife who,
Yeah,
she signed me up for the Bacon Council as the best investment.
You're here. Yeah, she's great though.
Yeah, and my mom who read so many books to me as a kid, but so
awesome.
Okay, cool.
Very good.
Well, thank you. We really do appreciate it. And thank you, listener, for listening to. Let us know if you already knew about the Dresden Files, or if this is something that was new to you. Let us know if you're interested. Let us know if you're not. We love hearing from you on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We're there.
Totally.
We listen. We reply sometimes.
Before we go, we want to give a shout out to a couple of special categories of patron. In the I Am the Listener tier, we have Lady Terry Ann Finley of Wigtonshire, Sweet Bottom Cakes, Jessica Drought, Sean Sandquist, Just Plain Old Kyler, Jennifer Kilkowski, Braden Winterton, Babs, Alicia Bass, Adrian Gray, Glow Clendaniel, Plot Twist Media, and Adam and Rachel Crump.
Thank you.
I'm listener. And then on our Bacon Council, we have Nicole D. Hale, a.k.a. Hailstorm, Go Knights Go, Chris Anderson, Ryan and Marley Farron.
Oh, Marley got added.
Stephen Ross.
Hey, Steven!
Mats Her Royal Highness Jessica Terry, our favorite couple, the Madsons, The Shadow, and Reverse Listener. Thank you,
so
everyone.
much.
We love you.
We really do appreciate you, patrons. You really help us keep doing what we're doing, and we really do appreciate that. So thank you. But if you want to find me, you can find me at 76Joel on Twitter, or you can find me performing with Quick Wits. They perform every Saturday night for free on Facebook. For more details, go to qwcomedy.com or go to the Quick Wits Facebook page.
If you want to find me on Twitter or Instagram, it's at Kenny3DD. If you want to read my movie reviews, it's ShowtimeShowdown.com.
If you'd like to connect with me, you can do so on Twitter and Instagram at Tumbling Mustard. But more importantly, make sure you're following Baconsale. Like that page on Facebook, and you can follow on Twitter and Instagram at Baconsale. While you're doing that, stop by tpublic.com/Baconsale. Get yourself some merch like a Queenie's Grits phone case.
Yeah.
What a great choice. You can also go to patreon.com/baconsale if you want to support the show further. Just $3 a month gets you the perk of potentially maybe weekly Bacon Bits where we talk for 30 to 45 minutes.
This is a 45-minute Bacon Bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
We just did a 45-minute Bacon Bit.
Join now.
It's like a Bacon Bit.
It's like we're good at talking or something.
It's all about bowling.
Patreon.com/baconsale. So until next time, toot toot.
Joel, they're already
Make
listening.
the other
They're
passengers listen.
listening already, okay?
Listen! Millennial, thank you!
Are you going to yell at me again? Don't yell at me.
Everyone be quiet.
I feel sensitive.
But I mean, honestly, just...
Joel, stop with the library thing.
That's all we need to know.
It seems like he's unpopular with women, and he's very sure of that, right?
Oh, no wonder you like these books.
Oh, take it easy. I relate, okay?
No Fabio.
No Fabio.
Like, so innocent, but still offensive.
You know how dare you, Zack? We told you not to bring that up.
Biblical curses in Harry Potter, which are like, yeah, we shouldn't do those. But if you do, like, whatever.
If you get shredded, you're cool.
If I have to stop wearing Axe body spray to stop enthralling women...
Once again, Baconsale brought to you by the library.
Skin Game's my favorite, for sure.
Oh, there's Toot-Toot.
Listen, Toot-Toot's awesome. Kent, you'll like Toot-Toot.
But, Steven, why would I read the books when there is a television series of the Dresden Files?
I mean, you can't cast a blonde.
Chicago Wizard Detective, go.
It feels very Canadian.
Stop it.
Toot-Toot!
I don't know. Online comments change the world.
Friendship is magic.
It is.
I'm
the everyman.
Yeah.
Not with those Muppet arms.